unfortunate things in Buddhism is that Buddhism has been, since it has 2,500 years and it has, half a dozen different countries, you have all this tremendous amount of material. And, eras where there was incredible practices and texts and all of that, have sort of gotten lost. And, nowadays someone might do one thing like the Heart Sutra, and that represents just one piece of 1,000 or 10,000 piece tradition that's, been preserved. So it's sort of amazing to go back into the fullness of the tradition. And the Prajnaparamita has such a very full tradition too. And as I get into it, you start to realize that, everything you want is there.
Like,
the Heart Sutra, the text that we're going to go over tonight, is one of these justly famous texts that summarize really the entire kind of view this of the Mahayana and the Prajnaparamita. So it's a beautiful summary. The text that I sent tonight, Kanza, this is adapted from Kanza's translation, and I compared it to the one the Dalai Lama uses and the one that Trungpa used, and improved the English in a few places also. So now I have what is a very nice small, this is kind of very short Heart Sutra. It's shorter than the ones that we've used before that Shambhala uses and such. Kanza says that the short one is probably the earliest one. So in a sense, this is kind of the core text, or the core of, and then people added a little more storyline on either side of it. I like it because it is just kind of the, core, the essence of Heart Sutra here. And it ends with the mantra, so that as we do it, which is sort of following Surya Dasa's style, we do this chanting of the mantra that can go on for as long as you want. And then at the end of a mantra, what you want to do is just go into silence and stillness and the completion state, and just hang out there for as long, for some time, and then come out of that, and then you go on to the next practice. So you don't have anything to finish up particularly. So it just sort of goes into space, which is a nice place to go after chanting this mantra. So I'll read it through once, and then I'll go through it and talk about in a little more, some commentary on a few parts of it that are different than what we're familiar with. The heart of perfect wisdom. Avalokita, the Holy Lord and Bodhisattva, was moving in the deep course of the wisdom that has gone beyond. He looked down from on high, he beheld the 5 skandhas, and saw that they were empty of self-nature. "O Shariputra," he said, "form is emptiness, and that very emptiness is form. Emptiness does not differ from form, nor does form differ from emptiness. Whatever is form, that is emptiness. Whatever is emptiness, that is form. The same is true of feelings, perception, impulses, and consciousness. O Shariputra, the phenomenal is marked by emptiness. Nothing is born nor dies. Nothing is defiled or pure. Nothing is partial or complete. Therefore, O Shariputra, where there is emptiness, there is neither form, nor feeling, nor perception, nor impulse, nor consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no sight organ element, up to no mind consciousness element, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, O Shariputra, since bodhisattvas are indifferent to personal attainment and abide by means of prajnaparamita, they dwell within without thought. In the absence of thought, there is no fear. They transcend falsehood and are sustained by nirvana. All those Buddhas of the three times, having relied on prajnaparamita, fully awakened to the utmost right and perfect enlightenment. Therefore, one should know prajnaparamita as the great spell, the spell of great knowledge, the utmost spell, the unequaled spell, the spell that pacifies all suffering. For in truth, for there is no deception, by prajnaparamita has this spell been received. Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Swaha. So as I said, this is the short, pithy version of the Heart Sutra. We start off, there's no preamble. We have Avalokita, the Holy Lord, and Bodhisattva. So I like this. At the time that you're writing this, Avalokiteshvara is becoming part of the Mahayana pantheon. So he's taking on this role. He's going to also be the origin of Tara later on. Tara is born from a teardrop of Avalokiteshvara. And so here, he's just this great bodhisattva, this great compassionate, merciful bodhisattva that saves human beings. And here, actually, he is delivering the Heart Sutra, not the Buddha. So this one is there's some interesting little shifts here. It's a little bit more you get the deity yoga aspect in here because you're actually addressing the speaker here, which is the Bodhisattva, Avalokita. So Avalokita, the Holy Lord and Bodhisattva, he is in some Buddha realm, moving in the deep course of wisdom which has gone beyond. Which, of course, the wisdom that has gone beyond is the Prajnaparamita wisdom. It is also the wisdom of Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhisvaha, which is all about going beyond, really going beyond, totally going beyond, going beyond. So, what are they going beyond? They're going beyond concept. They're going beyond belief in substance. They're going beyond duality. So they're leaving the whole of ignorance behind. So that's the deep course of the wisdom which has gone beyond. He's from the transcendent Dharmakaya sphere. And from here, he looks out and he sees the five skandhas. Well, the five skandhas are the components that make a person. And he sees that persons, which are these heaps of five skandhas, all these five skandhas, which are real per Abhidharma view, real elements, they're not real. They have no self-nature. They're empty. And everything is going to be empty, of course. And it's, what is it empty of here? Well, it's empty of self-nature. So it's not just simply empty as a concept, which it's certainly empty at that level. Things are just names and words, not words and names don't get to the actuality of something in its total presence and being. So in that sense, language is empty, words are empty, descriptors are empty, our thoughts are empty, all of our minds are full of a lot. So all of that is one kind of emptiness. But here we're also talking about the emptiness of self-nature, in that nothing is independent of the moment in which it's occurring. So it doesn't have, nothing has any existence. The only thing that's existing is the actual moment, which is a collage of phenomenal movement and being and extending in all directions. And in that moment, everything is pure, unborn, undying. It's just a pure display of phenomenal outpouring. And that outpouring is indivisible, whole, and it contains everything. So nothing is outside of that. So nothing has any kind of independent substance. It doesn't have any self-nature. It only is part of the, it's like if you watched a movie, or the current show I'm watching now on Netflix is Freud, and it takes place in 1890s Vienna, and it's a terrible show, but it's got great sets, of course. And these sets are just sumptuous because it's a sumptuous period, and everybody's dressed well, and the rooms are loaded with, wallpaper and furniture and stuff, and all this beautiful stuff. Well, nothing in that show has any independent existence outside being in that show. In that, the only reason that, everything is there because there's a show being produced, and that show is taking place. It's not like the objects in the movie can get up and do something on their own. They're all part of the movie, that they were placed there. They're all part of the event that's being depicted. And similarly, it is in our world. Everything is that we're all in the movie. The movie's being shot. We can't go walking off the movie. So the only thing that's real is the movie, and in particularly the moment of the movie that we're in right now. And attributing existence to things that are in the movie that are just flitting by on screen is totally self-fabricated. So that's the idea of how things are empty. And so all the phenomenal world is empty in this way. It doesn't have any independent self-nature. And yet it takes on an appearance. It's real. It has a real appearance in the moment. So each moment, things have appearance. People appear to us, we appear to others, things appear to us. There's just a lot of appearing going back and forth. And that's all happening in every moment. And so that is the form. So form is empty. It only exists in that moment when it's appearing. Form is emptiness. That very emptiness is full of form. There's no emptiness apart from the objects that appear in emptiness. There's no movie apart from the actors and the set and everything that you're filming. Emptiness does not differ from form, nor does form differ from emptiness. So they're just, it's one thing. Whatever is form, that is emptiness. Whatever is emptiness, that is form. So things are really, they appear, they're not substantial, and that insubstantiality and the appearance are always merged together. So he says, now when he says here that the same is true of feelings, perceptions, impulses, and consciousness, he's going through the whole aspect of what we experience in the phenomenal. So feelings are temporal and dreamlike. So are our feelings. They come and they go. Perceptions, they come and they go. Impulses. Impulses is the word that's used in this version, often as the fourth skanda is translated as concept. What it, I think, it's getting at here, that this particular skanda, is our capacity for mental fabrication. So you have form, so there are objects, you have a certain kind of feeling, positive, negative, neutral, about objects. You sort of have the ability to look into the details of an object, and then you have the ability to conceptualize about an object. And when you conceptualize about an object, that part is the mental fabrication, because the object, you create a story about the object, the story about the object relates to your story, there's a discursive narrative there, ideas are generated, and actions are generated. Like, wait, this cat does not belong on my lap. Out. And walks off and throws the cat outdoors. So, that's impulse. But if you're calm, you don't have that impulse. You just let the cat crawl over you, and it doesn't change anything. And then the last one is consciousness. And consciousness is a very... I've always had trouble with that as a skanda, because we use consciousness in Yogacara as like the ground of everything, like space. This is not the consciousness that is space. This is personal consciousness in the moment. So when we arrive in the present moment, we bring with us sensation of form, what we've heard, smelled, tasted, our senses. We bring with us our sensual perceptions, our feelings, our ideas about stuff, and then we also bring whatever awareness we can muster, and that's what we show up in the present with, and that's our heap or our personhood. So the consciousness is really just our awareness in that moment. And that is also both empty and real. So it's real, but it's moving very quickly, and you can't really put any kind of conceptual notion on what's going on. Things are sort of inexplicable. Even simple things are inexplicable ultimately. So it goes on to say, thus, Shariputra, the phenomenal is marked by emptiness. Nothing is born nor dies, nothing is defiled or pure, nothing is partial or complete. So, this is when you say nothing is born or dies, that's always a difficult one, because one of the three marks of existence in Buddhism that we've been taught from early Buddhism is that everything is impermanent. We're talking about everything is transitory. The reason why things are empty is because they have no abiding nature. They're constantly in flux. So now we say, well, actually, nothing is born nor dies. So where'd all this flux and impermanence go if nothing is born or dies? Well, this is sort of how it is in the actual extreme moment. In the present of the present, the present as experienced without a thought, where everything is just as it is. There's nothing in flux. there's a kind of stillness where everything is alive and vibrant because that's its moment. So nothing is coming into that moment, nothing's leaving that moment. That moment is just purely itself. And that's the moment where nothing is born and nothing dies. Now generally we view our lives not as lived from this magic moment of pure timelessness, but we live our lives in time and in the relative sense of things, and in the normal way we're conditioned to perceive things, which is in time. We see things being born and we see things dying. But that's because we're putting together moments that happened in the past and weaving a story about them. So birth and death are part of the narrative. They're part of, they're not the actual state of affairs. So that's the meaning of that. In the same way, whether things are just as they are, putting tags on them, particularly moral tags like defiled or pure, that's obviously elaboration or conceptualization. Similarly, if you say that something is separate or partial or whole, everything in a way is both partial and whole. It's the same kind of dynamic as form and emptiness. All of these possibilities of what something could be all comes later in our minds as we fabricate reality. But actual reality, before that kind of mental fabrication, things are undefined and everything just is. And it glows a bit. So, having said that, he's going to then go through the famous list where all the Abhidharma categories are denied. He says, therefore, O Shariputra, where there is emptiness, there is neither form, nor feeling, nor perception, nor impulse, nor consciousness. So when you get that still moment that we just talked about, that moment of the moment, present of the present, nobody's talking skandhas. I mean, that's words. Nobody's talking about sense objects, sense organs. No, there's no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance. Nobody's talking about sense objects. Nothing to see, nothing to smell, nothing to taste, nothing to touch. Now, there's no objects out there. There's no act of sensing these things. So all of that, the organ, the act of sensing, the sense object, all of that kind of way of breaking the world or breaking your mind into discrete operations, so to speak, that it's seamless at this point in the Prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom. Presence is seamless, and there's no defining and carving it up in such way. And similarly, the Nidanas get the same treatment, as do the Four Noble Truths. And just in case anything got left out, he adds, there's no path. Of course, that's Four Noble Truths, but this is, there's no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. So there's no enlightenment. That's another concept. So all the Buddhist concepts that ever are, were, or will be, are thrown out here. And why are they being thrown out? Because the point of the Prajnaparamita, the point of the perfection of wisdom, perfect wisdom, is that it is signless. It doesn't have any kind of annotation, elaboration, notes, words, descriptors, doctrines. It's signless. It doesn't have, it just is as it is. So that's the idea there. Denying the sort of doctrinal categories that have become the obsession in the Abhidharma. Now, interestingly, so what is the implication of denying doctrine? Well, first of all, if your idea is that there's never going to be any more doctrine in the world, well, that's not going to happen because, in fact, in Mahayana, we get twice as much doctrine as we get in Abhidharma, particularly when we get later on in the Yogacara. But here, they want to make the point that you have to have the experience yourself of perfect wisdom. You have to make that relationship with perfect wisdom, with the that stillness, that stopping of the mind, and that's paramount before any discussion at all can take place. So he goes on to say, therefore, O Shariputra, since bodhisattvas are indifferent to personal attainment, the idea of the bodhisattva, and particularly in the Yogacara, you get this idea who's like these kind of spiritual athlete, leaping through the hurdles of the bhumis. Like the bhumis were some sort of racetrack where, you jump one hurdle, then you jump two hurdles, and then you get up where you jump 10 hurdles. And the paramitas, you just pile on, pole vaulting and shot put throwing. So, it's sort of some kind of Ironman triathlon. But actually, the bodhisattvas are indifferent to that sort of thing, like Dzogchen yogi. They could care one way or the other about personal attainment. What they care about is abiding with wisdom, in that luminous wisdom that is close to transcendent reality. So, that being the case, they abide by means of prajnamita, they dwell without thought. Therefore, O Shariputra, since bodhisattvas are indifferent to personal attainment and abide by means of prajnaparamita, by perfect wisdom, stillness of mind, they dwell without thought. In the absence of thought, there is no fear. Now, there could be absolute terror in the absence of thought, but there's no fear. Let's be clear about that. If you're going to be eaten by a velociraptor, that's going to knock every thought out of your mind, but you're also going to be in total terror too. But that's okay. That wakes you up. But they transcend falsehood and are sustained by nirvana. So the bodhisattvas, they have no thoughts, they dwell in stillness, they transcend falsehood, because falsehood is all generated by mental fabrication. Leaving mental fabrication behind, they leave falsehood behind, they leave the possibility of falsehood behind. And hence they're sustained by the energies of nirvana, which are light and wisdom energies. And in daily life, we're sustained by the heart and intelligence of prajnaparamita. So it's both, there's an intelligence in the moment and there's a heart in the moment. So in each moment, in each situation that we face, there's always a way where we can move towards the heart of the moment, the heart of the present, and the intelligence of the present. And usually those two things are linked. But they're always, whether you recognize both of them or not, but there's always a heart and mind in each moment. And that's what we're connecting with. And we connect with it when we have an empty mind ourselves, that we could pick up on that kind of energy. So in that way, the bodhisattva, with his empty mind, in the absence of thought, he's sustained by the heart and intelligence of prajnaparamita. So in that way, the bodhisattva becomes this pure kind of temple for wisdom in this world. Now, all those Buddhas of the three times, that's what they've done. They haven't relied on prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom. They fully awaken to the utmost right and perfect enlightenment. And that's what enlightenment is to allow yourself to be guided by the heart and intelligence of wisdom, the prajnaparamita. So therefore, one should know Prajnaparamita as the great spell. Of course, mantra is the word, but I like spell here because it's being used as a spell. The great spell, the spell of great knowledge, the utmost spell, the unequaled spell, the spell that pacifies all suffering, because it's the spell, it's the mantra of truth. It's the mantra of absolute wisdom, of perfect wisdom, for which there is no deception. And this perfect wisdom mantra can only come from one place. It comes from perfect wisdom. And then we're given Om Gate Gate Para Gate Parasam Gate Bodhi Swaha, and so forth.
I like the spell. I like the use of that word. That's different. And here it says pacification, pacifies all suffering. Is that a term, just a kind of an accident of translation, or is there a historical relationship to the four kinds of?
That's my putting the word pacify in there because I'm trying to bring out this notion of everything is being driven by pacification.
Okay, so that was an intentional.
I think the allays all suffering is the common translation
Allays all suffering.
of it.
Yeah, that's similar.
But,
That's the same.
but I'm trying to tie it to the idea. I'm trying to thematically tie it to the idea of pacification, which is one of the four tantric powers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, pacify, richify, magnify, and destroy. So what we're going to be doing is working with the kind of basic level of magic, which is pacification magic.
And is she
from the Buddhist standpoint? And Buddhist magic involves the use of divine energies. I mean, speaking in sort of like a Western occult way of saying it, Vajrasattva, White Tara, Prajnaparamita. These are all embodiments of this divine energy, this natural energy of pacification, bringing rest. And so this whole idea of bringing rest is the idea here. I'm particularly trying to bring on the global cosmic level, we're trying to bring this raging virus to rest and the panic of the country and the world to rest. And also we're doing it in the classic Buddhist way of, we're doing it as a chant for the world, but the effect is that's the thing about these kinds of practices that make them very charismatic, is they're kind of like, it's like Pentecostal, direct calling on the Holy Spirit. And here our Holy Spirit is Prajnaparamita, is wisdom. It's an intelligent spirit that has a compassionate heart. But the Holy Spirit in Pentecostalism should have something similar to that. Unless you're in Louisiana, in which case all bets are off. Unless you're invoking.
I'm reading a book right now by Locke Kelly, and he's a non-dual teacher. He's studied with Tulku Urchin. So he has a very Dzogchen way of teaching and kind of explaining awareness. But he talks a lot about, his word for it is heart awareness, and I think that mirrors up pretty well to what you were talking about, Prajnaparamita, living from the heart, or that kind of heart instead of mind or concepts. But he does a pretty good job of describing what it's like to live in that non-dual way, living from the heart. He said you could always go to mind is always there, but for the most part you're living from this other awareness other than the conceptual awareness. So I wonder, in the description of what you read, if you could talk a little bit about living everyday life from that way, from Prajnaparamita, have that be the defining awareness in your life, like.
Well, I'm combining it. Yeah, so there's three things that I'm really combining here that we talk about on a practical level like that. Is the Prajnaparamita, that idea of the intelligent heart. So it's really, we want an intelligent heart, and we're going to live by feeling and not by reasoning things out. So that's the Prajnaparamita idea. But then we overlay that with the tantric idea of just sort of fully engaging everything and not being afraid to make mistakes. And then we overlay with the Dzogchen idea of having to go anywhere or do anything, that everything can happen naturally. And then we get a kind of nice mix there of how to be in the world. And you want to be spontaneous. That's part of the tantric aspect, is that spontaneity. So you want to learn to live based on feeling and not on calculation. So it's a whole different way of being in the world. And I lived and I have a calculating mind by nature. I mean, I was a researcher, so I can do calculating stuff quite well. And in calculating, you want to be prepared. You want to rehearse things. You want to have redundancies. You want to think out all the possible things. I mean, in certain kind of situations, say like preparing for a pandemic, you want a good reasoning, calculating mind. Apparently, there were around in America offered me a job, and I kind of figured this stuff out. I don't know how we were disaster planning 30 years ago. Why did they stop doing that? At any rate, so yeah, there are things for which a calculating mind is extremely useful, but realizing ultimate enlightenment is not one of those. So, since that's our goal, we're going to try and do things more by feeling it out than thinking it out. And so I don't make lists. I haven't made lists for decades. I have to try to keep everything in my mind. That's one way. And then, what else? Just a willingness to go into situation or trust. So it gets to be sort of like it's the Christian version of it's like trust in God. So you just have to kind of like live out there. And part of it, Trungpa used to talk about how you would live without armor. That your vulnerability was, you were out there. You weren't afraid to show who you were. In that, of course, there are limits on that. I mean, I live in a small town. There are a lot of limits. I mean, but you can push it a little bit. And you work in a corporation, there, you don't want to really show who you are too much. So a little bit, you can. Just a little bit. Enough that satisfies everything. So that's good. But yeah, you want to be. It's the idea of creating spontaneity and living by a just-in-time awareness. So when you calculating mind doesn't appreciate that intelligence will appear when it needs to appear if you just open. So in the Prajna Dzogchen Tantra way, all you have to do is be open and then follow the energy of the moment. So you're never trying to plot anything out in terms of an agenda or trying to manipulate the moment in any way or manipulate life in any way, in a general sense, for spiritual purposes. Not that you're trying to, tile your bath, and you gotta figure that out. And just make the pile show up. But with your basic approach to life have to be on just being open.
What is that? What does that feel like? What does that look like? What are examples? I mean,
it's a little scary at first. You get used to it. It feels free. It's a richer world because you're not going anywhere, you're not missing anything. Things are coming to you. That's one of the instructions given to Jim. Let the phenomenal come to you. So it's a whole different idea than manipulating the phenomenal. Manipulating the phenomenal, we all know that's it's a lot of work. I mean, the phenomenal doesn't like to be manipulated, so it resists it, and we struggle. But if we're not trying to manipulate the phenomenal, we're just trying to open up to it and witness it, be present to it, be aware of it, appreciate it. There's where your warmth and your compassion come in. Appreciate where you are. Even if you're in some ridiculous situation, even if you screw life up to where you're like a COPD guy living in a trailer in Georgia, and all your relatives have got coronavirus. I mean, appreciate your situation. I mean, you're going to die, but you've got a few days left, so enjoy it.
Also,
we're all in that situation right now.
But also open fits in with signless, the point that it is signless. And so it seems like, this match, open and signless.
Yeah, it's not about knowledge, it's about openness. So it takes all the categories of knowledge and says, no, not about that, not just abide in openness. What is perfect? Perfect wisdom is openness, a complete openness, totality of being present. It's the same thing. That is openness, being totally present, moment to moment.
Not having to form an opinion about something.
Definitely. Opinions are like viral elements. So, if you watch enough Fox News, you'll pick up some bad opinions. Or if you watch Breitbart, I spent the summer, Trump was running for office reading Breitbart because it was ruined. Yeah, you pick up some. Afterwards, I had to go through a detox, every dark-skinned person was a rapist after my daughter and my wife. So you got to get that idea out of your mind, after reading Breitbart or Fox News for more than
Bruce, Arvella had a question that she put in the chat there. You can see. Does life look holographic when you're living in the moment?
Well, it's always holographic. It's what holographs try to imitate is three-dimensional life. Um, it's fluid. One of the things about living in openness, in perfect wisdom, is that it's very fluid. Everything's it's still, and yet there's also how do you say it? There's stillness, and then there's this, there's a wind that moves through the stillness of space. And the wind is all these different kinds of energies. It's just quite amazing. When I have the wind of Prajnaparamita in my sail, so to speak, I can bound up the stairs of my house in about a minute without ever using a railing. If I don't have the wind of Prajnaparamita in me, I crawl up there hanging on the handrail. So part of it is, again, this there's a bit of aspect within the Prajnaparamita called a pneumatic aspect. The pneumatic is the wind of the Holy Spirit. This idea of the grace is a movement within you. And I think there's a wisdom bestows its grace upon us when we're open and ready. And that gives us a kind of wind, and that moves us. So it's interesting. You get to kind of whole dynamic of stillness, which is what wisdom herself is. But then, as wisdom, as that stillness fills you, almost from an abundance of stillness, you have the divine energies emerge as winds.
There was so the trilogy of Resting and Ease, Keith Dowman's translation of the third volume, they go through like Nagarjuna's similes of illusion, and then he adds maybe 2 or 3, and one of them he adds is the holographic universe, or everything is holographic. And so then I got interested in like, well, I don't even, what is a hologram? And then there was this whole physics back, Stephen Hawking, and he was going through like, at the Planck scale, there's a little piece of space, and it's not 3-dimensional, it's 2-dimensional, and it just appears 3-dimensional. Of course, I'm ruining the actual what it is, but then when you were talking about when you were going through the text earlier, and it's like it's just appearing, a lot of appearances going everywhere, and it's this appearance of every moment of our lives as if it has 3 dimensions, and as if it has these colors, as if reality has these colors, and as if time is linear, and all of this is not, there's no physics is falling apart at the edges on these very topics. But it's just an appearance, so I don't know, just random thoughts.
I like your picture. So, the chemical look. I realized that after a while that you're making picture. From the thing I wanted, the top part of it, it had the John Kelly look to it.
Yeah. I wouldn't suggest running a beer mile. That's my advice. It was a bad idea.
Is it and drinking beer at the same time?
Yeah, you have to chug a beer every quarter mile. It's not not a Miller Lite either. It's an IPA, so it's kind of gross.
Oh well. Man, back in the days before social distancing.
Yeah, right.
We're telling stories like that to, yes, grandfather, what did you do back in the day? We had meaningful social relationships like
We shook hands and hugged.
drank beer. All right, well, I think we'll close for this evening. I will send you out if I get it together, which I will try to do here. I'll just send you a ID for Sunday morning, and we'll continue. That sounds okay. By this prayer, we are all saved.
May defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the
Other stormy waves,
birth,
all days, and
from the ocean of samsara, may free. Thank you, Bruce. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.